Welcome, everybody, back to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. I am Salim, and I'm joined by my co-host, Coach Ralph. Coach, how you doing?
Tired and maybe not quite as happy as our previous podcast, Salim.
Yeah, yesterday was a tough one.
Yeah, it was, but anyway.
Let's start with the better news. The Thursday Europa League tie, second leg, Liverpool, Sparta Prague. I was at a wedding in Texas, so I only was able to watch the first half, but 4-1 to start the tie in the first half, and I think that's all I needed to see. But what were some of your thoughts on the game?
Well, as the scoreline suggests, it was a bit of a demolition, especially that opening salvo from the team. They absolutely took him apart. And I'd watched the first leg, and I thought Sparta gave a very good very good counter themselves in attack, but were really wretched in defence because Liverpool didn't have a great first half out in the Czech Republic, but they were scoring easily, and that carried over to the match at Anfield. And I guess the fan base right now is kind of looking back at that game with the benefit of hindsight, aren't they? And saying, well, okay, Liverpool won easily away. Why did they turn out such a strong team for a game that was a bit of a dead rubber?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of the stars played almost the whole game, if not the whole game.
Right. I mean, I think players like Salah had to get some minutes because he's coming back after a long-term injury. But I know we're not quite onto the Manchester United game. I think there were some carryovers because obviously Manchester United didn't have to play midweek. And so I felt that when the game went into overtime, Liverpool definitely didn't have that pep in their step for sure.
Yeah, what caught me by surprise in the first game, or the second leg of Liverpool Sparta Prague, was how sloppy Sparta Prague was in defense. And two of the goals, the second and third goal, were simply just a high press, them not getting rid of the ball fast enough. First one was Salah pressed and Bobby Clark scored. And the second one, McConnell pressed and Salah scored. So it's good to see Salah kind of back in the action on the score sheet. But I thought they just weren't up to it, because like you said, the first leg, there were chances in the first half and they just didn't convert. And this one, I mean, it was by the 14th minute, it's 4-0.
Yeah. As I say, it was a dead rubber. So I guess we have the benefit of hindsight, and if Liverpool had gone out and won, I don't know, 2 or 3-0, and maybe played a few of the younger players or the reserves or the bench, whatever. With hindsight, that could have helped for the weekend, but we're all experts when we look back and we know what happened, aren't we? So
yeah.
So yes, yeah.
The scoreline being 6-1, the tie ending at 11-2, very lopsided. Do you have a man of the match? Because I really don't think there's much to cover in this one. It was just a whooping. Who do you think was man of the match?
Okay. I would probably give it to Bobby Clark, if only because he's such a young player. He had an impact on the game, not only scoring, but also creating goals. And I think he has progressed very, very quickly Probably it's a little further along the road than they anticipated because of all the injuries. But he was a highly touted youngster when they, when they picked him up from the Newcastle academy, and he's come into Liverpool. He's played down in the junior teams, moved up to the under-21s, and he's clearly got talent. There was a very interesting comment, I thought, by two or three of the pundits, and I'm scrambling to think of his name. He played for Everton, and he said he'd been and watched Liverpool under-21s play a few times, and Bobby Clark, even though he's 17, 18, he said he just stood out. Everything was just too easy for him at that level. Mm-hmm. So yes, he's been accelerated up into the first team. There's been injuries, there's been opportunities, and I think he's grabbed it with both hands, and that was clearly on view last Thursday.
Yeah, it amazes me at that age. I think he's 19, but at just under 20 years old and being a professional athlete and on a massive scale at Liverpool, it's you have to get used to it, and it's really impressive when these kids really do kind of come in and play. And there's a lot of players that are touted as to be in the first team in academies all over Europe and probably all over the world. But it is still impressive when you think. I think back when I was 19, and I didn't know anything, and these guys are making good money and playing at a the best level.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's been part of an academy setup for a long time, and his father played at Newcastle, so he's grown up with the game, and I think that can be an advantage.
Yeah.
And if you look at his build, I mean, he's not filled out yet. He's wiry, is the way that I would describe him. But physically, he's already able to compete to some degree.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a great future.
Yeah, I would say Bobby Clark. I think Mohamed Salah had a good game, and Cody Gakpo had the 2 goals. So take your pick. I think anybody, any of those 3, I think you can easily slot into the man of the match. Mm-hmm. And but it was nice to get over. To get Mohamed Salah minutes, to get him on the score sheet, to get him pressing. But like we've been saying, and like you've been saying, hindsight's 20/20, because it surely did impact the FA Cup tie with Manchester United at Old Trafford. Let's move to that game. What do you say?
Well, before even a ball had been kicked, one thing that's totally amazed me was across the board, both pundits and fans treating it as though it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just found that unbelievable, given that it's the biggest game in English football. It has become the biggest rivalry in English football, and it goes beyond the fact that it's Liverpool and Manchester United. A lot of it has to do with the cities. There's big rivalries between the cities, and so it's a derby game. It's a derby game, and it's a cliche, and it's true that form can go out the window. Yeah. And so I was kind of amazed that everybody, oh yes, yeah, Liverpool will win. It'll be, I don't know, 3-1, 4-1, whatever. And clearly from the start of the game, I mean, I was expecting Man United to do what they did at Anfield and park the bus, and fair dues to them, like they came out, they started on the front foot. They did well. They scored early. And they were doing well, and then the deeper we got into the first half, whether they started to run out of gas a little bit, or Liverpool just started to get the foot on the ball more. Slowly, the tide began to turn. And then you got the two quick goals, taking the teams into the break. So all of a sudden, wasn't looking so great for Liverpool. United were maybe surprising to some degree. But then Liverpool did what they've been doing for the past few weeks. Suddenly they score, and then it's again. It's half time. Everything seems to be going Liverpool's way, and the second half, the vast majority of the play was with Liverpool. But one thing that wasn't a surprise was, while Manchester United didn't park the bus, they were forced onto the back foot. But they were dangerous when they broke. And maybe more in extra time that became more of a factor. But they could create chances because they had pace. And one thing that really, I don't know if amused is the right word, but I was listening to the BBC 606 podcast today, and what was happening was that they were giving score flashes from Old Trafford. And so with 5 minutes to go, like, they go over to Old Trafford, and there's some discussion between the commentator and a couple of the pundits. And basically what they're saying is, Man United aren't in the game. Liverpool have got total control of the game, and there's only minutes left. And then all of a sudden, out of nothing, Manchester United score.
Yeah.
And you can tell everybody's shocked because they just haven't been in the game. But they, they do have players that can create things. They've got talent. And on the day, you can say that they deserved the win because they hung it in there when they were under pressure. And then they kind of edged it, I think, in extra time. Part of it has to do with the way that Liverpool play. Because one thing that you can never say about a Jurgen Klopp team is they very rarely take their foot off the gas pedal.
Right.
And if you kind of look at the game, I think over his time in charge at Anfield, the early years, they would never really try to manage the game. They would always be attacking. And in some ways, it was a throwback yesterday because they didn't really look to manage the game. And they got burned. I mean, because they got the lead again. Again, going into the second half, they've just scored. Psychologically, the advantage should be with Liverpool. And then we got a dreadful mistake by Nunes.
Yeah.
Where he's deep in defence, he plays the ball square, and then they're away. And it's 3-3. And if you look at the winning goal, again, it is beyond the 120 minutes. There's a corner kick. Everybody's up. There's one guy back. Ball's cleared. Elliott loses the ball. Ball's cleared, and it's a 2 versus 1. And I mean, like, you can't fault the opposition. I mean, like, they were in a good situation. Rashford had missed a great chance with only seconds left. This time, the chance was taken. So credit to the evil empire, as I call them. Somewhat begrudgingly, but they hung on in there. They were dangerous. They created chances throughout the game. And Liverpool really didn't help themselves because they had the advantage, but they just didn't really use it this time because they scored goals at critical times of the game, but they didn't hold on to it. They didn't keep it to, as I say, their advantage.
Yeah, the 2 goals before halftime were really encouraging because I think you could say they were outplayed. I wouldn't say it was a massive advantage to United, but I would say they got outplayed. But the quick 2 goals would have been pretty devastating mentally, you would think, to United, and they did hang in there. And one thing that comes to mind was there was several opportunities when it was Liverpool breaking 4 versus 2, 5 versus 2, and they were just wasteful. It just seemed like they weren't that interested in kind of scoring that third goal that would have killed the game. And I don't know if that's the right word, but they just it didn't seem like there was a sense of urgency, and it was very slow in developing, and the passing was the wrong choice. And when you see that happen and there's a 1-goal lead, you're always thinking, well, that could come back to bite you because it's only a 1-goal lead and anything can happen. And Anthony's goal was, for a guy that doesn't score a lot, was a great turn. I was almost shocked he did it. And he bottom corner, nothing you can do about it. It was a fantastic turn and shot. And then, like you mentioned, really this game could have been over in United's favor 3-2 at the in the 90th minute when Rashford got in. I thought that was it, and I was shocked he missed. I've seen him do that many times, and he puts the ball in the back of the net. And the fact that he missed kind of gave me a false sense of hope, I think, because the extra time was exciting. It was back and forth. Teams were getting a little stretched. The Elliott's goal, little fortunate, I think, as was McAllister's. They were both deflected, but hey, a goal's a goal. And then the Núñez mistake, like you said, I mean, that I was screaming. I was on an airplane on my way back, and my wife literally elbowed me and said, "Hey, you can't yell." Like, I said, sorry. I just couldn't believe how just lazy that play was. And Núñez is a young guy, and he's learning the English game. It's almost now 2 years, and those things have to be cut out of his game, because it was just a one-touch pass, I think, from McTominay to Rashford, and it was in. It was literally 3 seconds, and it was in, and that was really that was heartbreaking. And I thought it was going to penalty kicks, and which. It's a coin flip at that point. We've been pretty successful in penalty kicks, but so have they. And like you said, the corner kick, and they're off to the races, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to take because they've been on a good run, but I think the bigger picture is. I think the bigger picture is that you've got to look at it and say, this is a team that's like they're playing like every 3-4 days or whatever it is. They've had to really stretch their resources at times. You've got players who've been out, players coming back. They've done incredibly well for a team that's not been settled.
Right.
And I think, I think some of the fans, and I think it's all clubs, I think that the modern fan, like, they get fed a diet of lots of television, football, media coverage, social media, phone-in shows, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's very different from the football that I knew when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And just the reaction of the fans, it's the end of the world and all of that. When it can probably, I think the manager, when he talked after the game, the interview that I saw was pretty spot on. I mean, They had lots of control for large parts of the game, but basically they didn't take the chances, and
Yeah.
they didn't convert. And I think my own philosophy is sometimes you can get bitten by bad luck. Sometimes the other team's better on the day or whatever. So Liverpool did have control for large parts of the game. And if they didn't take the chances, then they only had themselves to look at. They only had themselves to blame.
Right.
Um, and so, like that's the way that it is. And I think soccer's a game, as we all know, that sometimes you can be in a game, you can have 30 shots and not score, and then the other team goes down, has one chance or one shot and it's in.
Sure.
I mean, it's not basketball, it's not basketball. And one of the things that I find very hard about basketball is the one team scores, gets the ball, they go down the other end, they score, and it's just kind of to and fro.
Right.
And so soccer, football, call it what you will, it's just not that game.
Right.
And Manchester United did possibly, well, they did, they created more clear-cut chances than Liverpool. Liverpool had more possession, more dominance, more control of the game, but they didn't use it to their advantage. And I think the manager said that at the end of the game.
Yeah. And, take the Newcastle game, when Nunez came in and scored 2 goals. I mean, literally, that game we had 2 shots, 2 goals, down a man, and we beat him. And, we were all elated. There's something about those games, though, too, right, Coach, when you're not on it that day, and you're just kind of grinding through it, and the other teams really got just has the game in control, but for some reason they're not scoring, and then boom, one chance, 1 goal, game over, see you later. The games when you're on the winning side of that are really
right.
Yeah, you're excited, you're relieved, I would say. But then on the other hand, when it happens, it's just, it's tough. It's really tough. And anybody who's played soccer, more than, 20 games has probably experienced that one way or another. Yeah, it just happens here and there. And the only bad part is that this was United. And the team there, I think they were facing Coventry City next. Is that right?
Yeah. I think there's an irony to what's happened here,
right?
Because obviously, it was a great result for Manchester United, and they have a chance of winning the FA Cup. But my head tells me it was a better result for Manchester City than it was for Manchester United, because, if you analyze the games over the last few seasons, I think the Manchester City game at the weekend was a typical Manchester City game where basically the game's done and dusted early, and they just play out time. And so you look at it and say, well, is there any team that's given them problems over the years? And the answer is yes, there's one, and it's Liverpool. And so, football being football, as we've said, Manchester United could beat them on the day, but I think those games are going to be few and far between, to be honest with you. So I think it's a great result for Manchester United, but I think it's a better result for Manchester City.
Yeah, or Chelsea, right?
Well, that'll be the interesting thing, because City have dominated Chelsea in recent years, and Chelsea have been poor this year, but yet 2 games with Manchester City, they've actually caused some problems. Whether they can do it for a third time might be stretching the imagination, but yeah. So it's extra disappointing to see. Okay, if we'd have gone through would have probably have had these. Well, I don't want to be unfair to Coventry City because they've done incredibly well.
Right.
But you can bet your bottom dollar that the three teams or the three Premier League teams are all hoping that they draw Coventry.
Sure.
So yeah. So it's disappointing from that point of view as well. But I think at this point, they've just got to put the game behind them. They'll be disappointed. Fan base is very disappointed, but sometimes I think that we're spoiled because, given all of the circumstances this year, to even be talking about 4 trophies is kind of wow. And as I said, I think in the first podcast that we did, it could well be that Liverpool only win 1 trophy this year.
Yeah.
And that is the reality. And of course, if that happens, you'll get people trolling about it and Klopp and all this kind of stuff, and the media. We'll have to see how they do it. Maybe they'll brand it a flop, but the truth is, to be in contention for so long, I think, has been one heck of an accomplishment because of all the circumstances this year.
Yeah, do you think this could maybe be a blessing in disguise now we don't have the additional 2 games to worry about, and when the FA Cup games resume, we'll be kind of on the sideline, and also the fact that the international break came when it did. We have Nunez, I think, has or Luis Diaz has a groin issue. Nunez has a hamstring issue, and Cody Gakpo twisted his ankle. So, all right.
Well, I don't know if those players have travelled with their teams, have they? Do you know?
I don't, but what I think the point is that whether they have or they haven't, they're probably not going to play. And having 2 weeks before the next game, maybe that was the price we paid. The United, we lost to United, and we got a couple guys hurt. But the good news is that they have a couple weeks to recover, and hopefully that will be the case. The team did look tired in the second half, like you said. Lucho looked like he ran himself into the ground. I mean, he was. It wasn't like the type of performance that we're used to from him, but he looked exhausted. And I'm glad they subbed him out. But at that point, it was, I think, the second half of the extra time. And you mentioned something about the Caribou Cup could be the only cup we win, and how are people going to twist it and this and that. But the reality is that at the end of the season, we will look back and have fond memories of Coach Klopp and this team. And I think that's something we have to remember. We can't win every game. We're going to have some good performances that we lose. We're going to have some bad performances that we win, and everything in between. And as a fan, the word comes from fanatic. I think there's a lot of people that are fanatical about these things versus people, I think, Coach, like you and I, are a little bit more analytical about it, and a little bit more less hysterical about it. And the fact of the matter is that we still got the Europa League, and we still got the Premier League. We're in the quarterfinals now of the Europa League. Yeah, quarterfinals, right? And then last 10 games here, stretch run, with being tied with Arsenal and Manchester City, breathing down our neck. So I mean, it's the next couple months are going to be very exciting. There's no doubt about it.
Right. So yeah. I'm just looking at the overall squad here, and you have a situation where Kelleher, Bradley, Van Dijk, Robertson, McAllister, Endo, Sabozlai, Salah, Gomez, Simicas, Quancha, Elliott are all definitely away with international teams. Now, there's the question marks then over Nunes, Diaz, and Gakpo because if they're not injured, then they're away.
Right.
So out of the first team squad, that leaves, well, that's pretty much everybody because the only players who are currently fit, well, you've got the veteran goalkeeper Adrian,
Sure.
and then you've got the 4 young lads Clark, McConnell, Dans, and Kumas. Now, what the wild cards might be is, will any of the injured players be ready for the Brighton game at the end of the month?
Right.
So I mean, like Konate would have been away, but he's not. Allison would have been away, but he's not. Alexander-Arnold, who knows there? Sometimes he's in and sometimes he's not.
Right. Yeah.
And then Bajcetic is he's back in training. Gravenberg is back in training because he would have been away. Sure. I don't think he's with the Dutch squad now. So you got 4 or 5 players, and then Jota, I don't think he'll be back for the 31st, but they're talking about he could be ready for April now.
Yeah.
Which is earlier than anticipated. So if they can get some of these guys back playing and in the fold, this is going to be huge for the run-in.
Yeah.
It'll be massive for the run-in. They've got, I'm just looking at the Football League injury list here as well. The only ones that are definitely out are Thiago, but
he's been out all year.
He just never seems to be fit. Actually, it has Diaz listed as a no return date, and got Gakpo the same.
Okay. The game was yesterday. They might be doing tests today or even tomorrow, depending on swelling and all that stuff.
Nunes is listed as being as having a return date as the 31st. Right. Now this is an independent web page, which actually is pretty good at keeping up with all the injuries, but whether they've actually gone to the national teams, because sometimes they require them to come so that they can examine them, because there's been history with many clubs of players not being released when they could have played or whatever. Yeah. So that I couldn't tell you. So there's a lot of things are up in the air right now. Maybe some of these guys will be ready for the Brighton game, and in recent seasons Brighton have caused Liverpool problems. So I wouldn't say that that's a foregone conclusion by any manner of means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and big shout out to Joe Gomez for getting selected to the English squad. I mean, Klopp has said it many times in recent interviews. Without Joe Gomez, we aren't where we are. His flexibility, we talked about it in the past podcasts. So, even though we took a bit of a hit yesterday, I'm super happy for Joe Gomez. He's it's deserved in my eyes because of his flexibility and the different positions he played for us and kind of kept us rolling.
Uh-huh. So yeah, I mean, Gomez is very underrated, and I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that he's kind of he's not flashy, he's quiet, and he's had several times in his career when he seemed to be really pushing through, and then he's had serious injuries that have kept him out for considerable length of time. So yeah, he's had a tough ride, and I think twice when he's gone away with England, he's come back with a serious injury.
Let's hope that doesn't.
Hopefully it's third time lucky. Hopefully it's third time lucky for Gomez. And I'm just looking actually at the Liverpool run in here, and it's being compared to the other contenders. So they rate this is in where's this? This is the no, it's the Independent newspaper. They rate Arsenal as having the hardest run in, and then Liverpool and Manchester City slightly easier, but not significantly easier. So we'll have to see how accurate that is.
I think the reason they're saying Arsenal is because they face City in their next game. But I know all three teams, I'm pretty sure all three teams, as far as like difficult games, quote unquote, on paper, they all have Tottenham, and I think
they all have Aston Villa, they all have Manchester United.
Yeah. So, those Aston Villa is a good team, United on their day. And I mean, they're a good team. And Tottenham, I mean, they can beat you 4-0 and they can lose 3-0. I mean, so we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I want to transition just to some off the pitch news. Michael Edwards, the chief of football operations now, is his new role with Liverpool. Michael Edwards was credited with, when he was in the scouting department, was credited with scouting Klopp and bringing Klopp on. I don't know if necessarily he should get all the credit for that, because I think everybody knew Klopp wanted to come to Liverpool as his next role. Maybe he didn't want to do it as quick as he did, but he also did great transfer work with getting Allison and Van Dijk and selling a lot of our players that were, bit part players for really, really high transfer fees. So the fact that now he's going to be running the whole operations is fascinating, but it's also, to me, it shows that there's going to be some continuity because he's back now. Even though Klopp's leaving, there's going to be some continuity within the back staff and how to work transfers and the analytics that they use. So I'm pretty comfortable with that, with those news and him coming back. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, he was clearly highly rated by FSG, so sounds like they've bent over backwards to get him back.
Right.
I believe several clubs, including Manchester United, have tried to lure him over, which he declined, and apparently he declined Liverpool at first. Sounds like he wanted more, for the lack of a better word, he wanted more power within the setup, and FSG in the end, they must trust him because it seems that they've given it to him, and he certainly lined up the guy that he wants to come in to, basically to take the role that he had before, which is the fellow from Bournemouth, Richard Hughes. So I'm understanding that the third cog in this wheel is obviously going to be the new manager. So it has to be somebody who Edwards feels fits in with his vision and his goals. And he's been a big part of building the program, as it were, to where it is today.
Right.
Now, I think that we'd all like to see somebody come in, obviously who's good, but obviously somebody who's compatible with much of what has happened during the Edwards Klopp era.
Sure.
I think that's something that's kind of key. I believe I said it before on one of the previous podcasts. I don't think it has to be somebody that's exactly the same as Jurgen Klopp. I think it's got to be somebody that looks at the things that Jurgen Klopp has done in his time and builds on it in his own way. And it might be that he takes it in a slightly different direction. But I don't think it would be wise for somebody to come in, and I'm going way back into the 90s here, where Graham Souness came in, and it was kind of in that era when the legendary boot room of Anfield, where you'd had continuity from Shankly to Paisley to Fagan, things had been handed down the line, and Kenny Dalglish had taken over, and the football world was starting to change. And Souness came in and he tried to change it overnight. So I don't think that you really want somebody that's going to try to change the things that Jurgen Klopp has done. I think it's somebody that builds upon it and modifies it,
and
to his own ends. And I think having Edwards to some degree should help facilitate that.
Yeah, and the two candidates that were thrown out are Xabi Alonso and De Zerbi from Brighton. If those are the two choices, Coach, is there one you'd prefer to the other? I mean, we know the job Alonso's doing at Leverkusen is incredible. But just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I suppose in one broad way, that what Alonso is doing reflects something that a couple of his predecessors, a couple of predecessors at Anfield have done, one of whom is Jurgen Klopp, and then earlier there was Rafael Benitez, were in their own countries, Germany and Spain, they won the league with teams that with clubs that maybe weren't as fancied, if that's the right word.
Right.
Countries where the league is dominated by Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Klopp with Borussia Dortmund, and Benitez with Valencia. Both of them won 2 league titles, and in many respects, I think that what Alonso has done is even more impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, like he would be a logical choice. I think he's somebody that would be accepted by the fan base, if only because he was a great player for Liverpool. I think that's a big thing that he has in his favour. I think De Zerbi, when I look at De Zerbi, he's obviously got philosophy of play. He likes to play attacking football, and he can be resourceful. I guess the question mark that I've got against him is that his results are all over the place. They can be absolutely brilliant, and then they can be, well, I don't know if terrible is the right word, but let's say not too impressive. And it's just that inconsistency. I know that he'll make changes, sometimes for the sake of it. Brighton have had injuries this year. I think they've had one of the bigger injury lists that's in the league. But they're a club that, to be fair, have done very well in terms of recruiting players. So he has talent at his disposal. And I guess something else that would kind of concern me about De Zerbi is I'm not convinced that he wants to modify his style. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes you've got to be prepared to do that. Maybe play a little more conservatively or a tighter game. certainly as you're building a team, I think that you've got to be willing to do that. And I'm certainly not an expert on Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club, but I kind of get the impression that that he's not willing to compromise. He just wants to play the same way or a similar type of way all the time.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of very interesting tactical breakdowns of Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen on YouTube, and the pedigree that he comes from as a player. And I heard Mourinho say once that he's played under Rafa Benitez, he's played under Mourinho, he's played under I think he was with Pep, right, in Bayern Munich.
Yeah, he played under Guardiola.
So, and I think his father was a coach as well. So he's got like all these different philosophies from all these top coaches, and he even predicted before Alonso went to Leverkusen that he's probably one to look out for, because he's got a great pedigree, and he when you see him as a player, you can tell he thought the game through. It's not like he was very fast, or there wasn't like one quality that was through the roof. Maybe his passing, but you could tell that he was a good player, and that he thought through the game. There was intelligence about his play. So the fact that now he's doing the job that he is at Leverkusen, and he's got the background of these three really, really good coaches and how they coached, and as they influence him, hopefully, that coming back to Liverpool would be special. But these things are up in the air too. There could be a dark horse from somewhere that we have no idea that. Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes think that, hey, this is the new guy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I think anything can happen, and I guess that they're the guys that are in the business, and basically it's their job.
Yeah, yeah.
It's their job to know.
Well, we got a couple weeks before the Brighton game. Probably good time for the team to kind of regroup a little bit, and like you said, the majority of the squad is off with international duties. Let's hope nobody gets hurt, and that our dinged up guys get healthy for that game. I have one more thing, Coach. We have 10 games left in the Premier League, and we kind of talked briefly about how all three teams are about facing the same competition, and there's 2 or 3 teams in there that could throw a wrench in any one season. How do you think it's going to turn out? Gosh, what would you predict? Because I think it's going to come down to the last week.
Well, I think that we've got to credit Arsenal, because I think most people are kind of saying, well, they faded last year. They don't have the experience of Manchester City and Liverpool of actually claiming the title. So I think a lot is riding on the Arsenal-Manchester City game. I think a lot is riding on that.
What's the best result for Liverpool in that game? Is it a tie? Is it?
Well, I could be cynical and say an Arsenal win because they're going to fade,
right?
But I'm not. I'm not totally convinced. I think you've got to give them a lot of credit, because out of the 3, they have probably been in the they have been in the best form. So I suppose you could say that, but I guess you'd be saying that because Manchester City are Manchester City, and they just get these runs together. And to be honest with you, as I think we saw at the weekend, most teams tend to lay down and die in front of them. And that's when I get a bit. And I think the Manchester City issue for me is very, very complicated, because because they need to resolve some of these financial issues, and yeah, I'm not going to get into that.
Especially that today's news, Nottingham Forest got docked 4 points. See,
Right. I mean, basically, it's deciding relegation this year, or it could do. It's definitely having a bearing on it. So really, Manchester City were charged earlier. Okay, they were charged 100+ charges. So, okay, so the Sterling. Does this mean, that they go on, say if they win the league again and the treble and all this kind of stuff, and then they get found guilty? What does that mean then? Does it mean all those trophies get rescinded? I think really it's for the benefit of the game. I mean, I'd like to see more interest from the media of actually campaigning for it to get resolved, because otherwise, I hear, it's the most competitive league in the world. For me, outside of Manchester City, it is.
Right.
But anyway, so I think all three teams have got a chance. My head tells me Manchester City. Right. My heart tells me don't rule out Liverpool. But I think that there are things that they have to overcome, and they've done okay up until Sunday in overcoming them. And even though most are writing off Arsenal, I don't think that you should write them off. We'll see how they do up at the Etihad. I think we have to see how they do at the Etihad.
Yeah, the thing with Arsenal is that, they're scorching hot, and can they keep this level for the last 10 games is the question. And can they go on this type of the types of run that you talked about with City? I mean, we've seen City win 14, 15 games in a row to end a season. It just, you drop any points and you just like, man, what are we supposed to do? So it'll be interesting coming down to the wire. And Coach, I want to thank you again for hopping on. For the listeners out there, we have a couple of challenges. I'm leaving town again soon, and so I appreciate it, Coach, for being flexible. And folks, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time. Liverpool fans, we love you.
Okay. Have a great night, everyone.